They didn't know what they didn't know. That stood out for me in this story. Cleopas and his unnamed companion had their eyes opened when they were at table with the risen Lord, and then they knew. Up to that point, they thought they knew. When the stranger asked them what they were talking about, they were surprised that he didn't seem to have heard. Seriously? Have you been living under a rock? Well, sort of, for a couple of days. They were surprised, but they brought this stranger up to date with what they had heard. But they didn't know what they didn't know. If you're on Facebook these days, as many of us are, you might have noticed a couple of posts I made. The first one was titled, "France is Bacon." It was a humorous account of a person whose father used to say, "Knowledge is power," and then to indicate that it was a quote would say the name of the person who'd said it, Francis Bacon. But what the writer heard was, "Knowledge is power, France is bacon." For years, the writer thought there was some mysterious parallel between knowledge is power and France is bacon. And of course, they eventually realized that their father was naming the philosopher Francis Bacon. It reminded me of a story I heard almost 50 years ago. It was a humorous article in Reader's Digest by a writer named Will Stanton. The title was, "There's No Mayonnaise in Ireland." In that story, the writer had heard someone say, quoting the poet John Donne, "No man is an island," but misunderstood them and thought they had said, "There's no mayonnaise in Ireland." Then I got a Facebook comment from Will Stanton himself. How cool, I thought. He must be really old. Yeah, he's so old he died in 1996. You don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you don't know that you don't know. After I shared these stories, several of my friends shared more of them. One remembers seeing a sign at a pedestrian crosswalk on the way to the Baptist church. She thought it said Presbyterian Crossing and wanted to know if the Baptists got one like that too. Another related their surprise when they learned that the pastor was actually asking for tithes and offerings, not tithes and offerings. And another friend told about her brother at the age of 3 taking off his little clip-on tie and putting it into the offering plate because he thought the preacher asked for tithes and offerings. We don't know what we don't know. And Cleopas and his companion had no way to know and understand that Jesus was walking alongside them. They had no way to know, that is, until they were at table. Jesus took the bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to them, and that was where their eyes were opened and they recognized Jesus. That was what made them aware of their hearts burning within them. That was what sent them racing back to Jerusalem to tell the others. Imagine how energized they must have been in that moment of recognition. There they were, downcast, despairing, their hopes dashed, making their way to some little noted town about as ordinary as Sterling, Illinois. Jesus, the one they had hoped would be the Messiah, was dead. They were on their way to Emmaus. And then, as they discussed and talked, he came alongside them. Jesus accompanied them on their journey and revealed himself to them at the table. Until then, they had not known what they didn't see. Many of us can tell a story of a time when our lives were at a crossroads and our eyes were opened to something we did not know before. We might tell about being in a state of confusion or chaos, or what turned out to be rock bottom of our lives. And frequently we find that when we're at our lowest, we're the most open to revelation, to a new recognition of hope, to a new way of life. Times of great uncertainty are often when we are most open to learning, When anxiety and questions are swirling around us as they are now, we can be more open to seeing what is being revealed to us. Sometimes what is revealed is the answer to a question we haven't yet asked, because we don't know that we don't know. Some things we do know and can know. This pandemic is unique and unprecedented. Everyone is having to figure it out as they go along. We're learning new information every day. Some days we can only take in so much, and sometimes we just can't take in anything more. The feelings of uncertainty and worry and exhaustion are shared by everyone, and some people are having more difficulty than others, particularly those who are in poverty, those who are in poor health, those who live alone and have no community, those who are essential workers and can't stay home, and those whose livelihoods are on shutdown and who must stay home. Interestingly, a recent article in Psychology Today about coping with crisis suggests that many of the responses we have are the same as those two travelers to Emmaus. It's okay to feel what you feel. And if you're feeling grief or anxiety or even anger, feel it. Like those travelers, you may be sad. Let yourself feel sad. That grief of Cleopas and his companion was normal. So is yours. So feel your feelings and move on with your day. Be open to what you can learn. When the stranger began to teach them, the Emmaus travelers listened. They were open to what they might know and learn. Seek positive things that you can do. Even in their grief and confusion, the Emmaus travelers extended hospitality to a stranger. And you may not be able to invite someone for dinner right now, but what can you do for someone else? Decide to be positive and grateful. While there are many things right now for which we are not grateful, we can look for what is beautiful and what is revealed in this time. It may be difficult to imagine or describe how it is that Jesus can show up in times and places such as the one we are in right now. But Jesus shows up in ways we didn't know he could. The Spirit of God is present with us even when we don't think of it. At our kitchen tables, in the breaking of the bread, in our conversations, even in our Zoom sessions. Maybe we encounter the risen Lord on an early morning walk as we see the earth awakening and feel a sense of peace. It could be that our eyes are open to Jesus as we extend small gestures of help to others. Perhaps we see Jesus in the faces of those we love, even if we are seeing them through the window or the door or FaceTime or Zoom. Maybe our hearts burn within us during an online worship service or when we sit praying in the quiet night. In whatever ways we meet Jesus while we are on this journey, we can trust that he will teach us and guide us and lead us. And may our eyes be always open to his presence. Amen.